It's another episode of Feed the Trolls, and Bleh is with us for this one. We've not had you on this show before, and I don't actually understand why that hasn't happened.
I think I've been asked at least a couple of times, just bad scheduling and all of that. But yeah, I'm finally happy to be here. Enjoy the show. Love a lot of the some of the topics. It's I think it's something that might suit me quite a bit.
And you have to realize it's not like I just say to someone, do you want to come on the show? Like sometimes it is like, can you come on the show at this day, at this one specific time? And if they can't do that, then it's like, no, I can't. So it's just tricky. That's also the problem, by the way, if people don't know as to why a lot of people who are talent don't always appear on shows that constantly doing events, or that's their week off, or that's when they go see their families. So it's also, it can actually, believe it or not, be trickier to make talent than players sometimes, but just the nature of the industry.
People have
we
to
got him
work,
eventually.
Right?
We got him eventually.
Yeah, we got him. And we don't pay, so we have to get people to do this for free.
That's true as well. They are also volunteering their time, so we can make some YouTube pennies. True.
Yeah,
all the ad revenue.
All that ad revenue for my one drink at the bar. Anyway, let's get into this one because it's a conversation that I think is really interesting, and it's one that I've kind of wanted to have for a while. But before we do the deep dive, I've got to do the rumor address because I do think it is relevant. And normally I try to stay away from this, but it was a curious one that came out. Obviously, the same old roster rumors that pop up. This one was that after EWC, Liquid and FaZe are going to swap EliGE and
Twistzz. So insane.
This is like some Days of Their Life level. Like, there's no way this soap opera, surely. Like, not like, wait a minute, she's back with her twin, and that was the evil one all along. Like, what? Like, that doesn't even, what's mad about that is, it's almost so insane a rumor. It's what gives it, like, some mad credibility. Do you know what I mean? Because you just think to yourself, if there's none of that true whatsoever, what on earth is Overdrive sitting, doing, cooking up in his little tower somewhere? Like, is he just completely constructing these roster moves? And this is just like, he's tried to push the boat out too far. But you know what I mean? The fact that it's so nuts almost makes you think there has to be like a tiny grain of truth to it, you know?
Which is so insane to me because coming into this and knowing we had to talk about Liquid, I obviously had to do my prep because if I'm going in hard, I'm going in rough, right? Since the middle of 2021, they've had about 18 players. I'm not counting the coaches, which gets to like, over a score. 18 player changes. Like, what the fuck is happening? And this is across a span of like, 3 or 4 years. Just this year, you've had like so many switches as well, like 4 players coming in, getting bench and all of that. And now you throw in Twistzz, potentially going back to FaZe and EliGE, who, obviously he must have improved quite a bit playing under Karrigan and everything. But we've heard the rumors, all the stories about his personality and how it didn't quite work with Liquid, and him coming back. It just feels like just throwing everything that could potentially stick on the wall and hoping something finally lands. And I don't think that's a solution. It's just so rough to watch.
Are we putting any credence in this rumor though? Because I thought I was kind
honestly.
of. That was my thing,
there's nothing within the industry to suggest it. I would just say that. Like, even if I can give you some angles, but they're like pure speculation based on like trying to like imagine what each team's thinking or whatever. But the weirdest thing about this is, as far as I can tell, there's zero warning sign whatsoever. Like, there's no build up to it. There's nothing to hint at it. There's not even, normally you can at least do something like find an interview, quote that hint so they're doing something or the concept. And also, you notice everyone has just stayed completely tight-lipped on this particular drama. There hasn't been the people who go like, the classic move would be someone like Twistzz goes at Overdrive, like, why are you talking shit? You don't know what you are. No one's even done that. No one's even done the classic initial denial that could be true or not. You haven't even had it. I haven't had fair enough to Team Liquid. They've actually just stayed silent on this one.
Which is why I've started getting suspicious. I fell down the rabbit hole.
Right, I see.
When I first saw it, I went, what a load of rubbish. And then as time went on, no one said anything. And I was like, oh no. And then I was like, remember that one time we had Zeus on Feed the Trolls way before he had his small breakdown. And during that time, he mentioned that like Twistzz always goes to basketball with Karrigan and Rain.
Oh yeah, sure.
And never buys him shirts. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I'd gone down like this. I had done that thing where I had just like grasped at straws and suddenly was like, oh my gosh, this could be true. But obviously the logical brain, Blair, is like, EliGE's moved all the way to Europe to play for FaZe. Like, that's not a cheap exercise. Also, like, you would start looking at player values. It's not in my opinion, it's not a clean swap for swap here. Like, there is money that also has to be involved and how that looks when you swap them.
He's even got the new apartment and everything, right? Like infamously, they had a player cam, so it was kind of unfurnished. So if he's got to make a move, I think now is a good time before he buys the beds and tables and whatnot. But jokes aside, look, I feel if for FaZe though, I don't think it's going to be a big hit. In fact, might even be a positive, right? Twistzz coming back in, the camaraderie he's got with the rest of the teams and everything. Even though EliGE, I feel, has been doing a pretty solid job for FaZe overall. I think he's been delivering when he's been asked to, at least in the past couple of events. But for FaZe, I think it would be kind of a side grade, right? Overall, Twistzz can still frag out. But I think for Liquid, again, it's not a solution. It doesn't even feel like a Band-Aid. It feels like just ripping the wounds open and just bleeding out. At some point, you got to stem the bleeding, and it's not really happening. I say that. They did look reasonably good against Furia, who I rate pretty high, albeit it was online and everything. So maybe there might be some truth to the rumors, but I feel like how they perform they're going up against Vitality tomorrow, which is, good luck, guys. But apart from that, if they put up a decent showing, even with the loss, right, I think it could be some signs of heading them in the right direction. And maybe in that case, just stick with what they have right now.
All right,
Thorin.
shall I give you my angle, right? So
Yeah,
here's how it
let's hear it.
goes, right? Because the thing is, if you think this all the way through, you think about all the parties involved, Team Liquid, FaZe Clan, but then Twistzz and EliGE, right? To me, the most logical angle this has to be, if there's anything to it at all, is that it's actually Twistzz and FaZe who are the motivated parties who are acting. The idea is Twistzz wants a way out of Liquid, but I wouldn't blame him. Now, to be fair, you did help make the dog's dinner that now exists, but I understand you don't want to eat it if you could go to a better restaurant in this analogy. And in this case, what restaurant's available? Your favorite one, the one that you had all your success at in FaZe Clan. And what it is funny, by the way, how that works, that when people leave a team and they think they're going for greener grass, and in this case, he was going to be the IGL and all these great dreams. Yeah, well, those don't work out. You just go back to where you were successful last. Like, that's a classic move humans do. I think it's even something you see many, many times in sports and esports. You just try to recreate the last lineup you run that was actually good. It's like, unfortunately, though, it's probably the biggest trap in Counter-Strike because people tend to forget why they broke the roster up and then recreate a roster that doesn't always work and sometimes can never get to that level. So to me, I'm assuming this is, like I say, a mixture of Twistzz going, right, well, I want out now. I'm sick of this Team Liquid project. It hasn't worked. By the way, you did give me everything I asked for. You gave me Kindar IGL, then you gave me NertZ, you gave me all these, but it didn't work. Okay, I've got to play CS. So I'd heard in the past anyway that throughout a bunch of the versions of Team Liquid, like when the Arcadian one ended, I'd heard even then actually Twistzz was potentially looking for a way out. At the time, it was actually he could have gone to that fabled move to Vitality again, in the same way as when he left FaZe, supposedly Vitality was one of the moves he could have made. And then people say that basically behind the scenes, that's supposedly why they had to make him the IGL, because the idea was otherwise he could have walked and maybe gone to a Vitality or something like that at the time when they were still considering a player move, because this is in the 2024 lineup when they had all those problems behind the scenes, which is why they didn't win many tournaments and eventually Spinks got kicked out. So there's that angle. If you FaZe, by the way, I think that one's a little bit more weird. We can maybe get into that because I'm actually really not sure on that one. That's definitely not a 1-for-1 role swap. I'm not even sure that necessarily would be an awesome move. It's an interesting move. Again, if you want to try something to stimulate success again, that really is almost like they're listening to our podcast and they're like, actually, the problem isn't anything in CS, it's the vibes. Bring back the old vibes. You're almost trying to do that. But the weirdest one also, I think, is the Team Liquid side, because there's actually quite a logical reason why if you're Team Liquid, if that is put on you, right, Twistzz is going to leave, he's going back to FaZe Clan, but then you know that the player available is EliGE. Well, that's the interesting, sexy part, because as pointed out by Zeus, and I'd heard this the whole time, basically, I also know a lot of the people in Team Liquid over the years, supposedly, actually, after his complexity period where he was really good, and EliGE got into the top 20 again, and everyone acknowledged he was probably the best NA player at the time, it was him and Twistzz. Yeah. The story goes that Liquid a few times has sort of wondered within the team, could EliGE come back and play with us? But essentially, the story goes, the people in the team, let's just say, gave a hard veto. And spoiler, one of those people was Twistzz. So since especially he became the in-game leader and he was super close with all the coach, etc., that just, I was told, was not on the table. That was just not a move that could happen. But if Twistzz is leaving you anyway, right, first of all, in the same way as Twistzz going back to FaZe Clan recreates a comfy scenario where he had success, EliGE and Team Liquid has been an amazing partnership for both parties. And also, if Twistzz was the main person standing in your way, he's not in your way anymore. And then lastly, of all the problems, and we'll get into them in this episode, that Team Liquid's had, I actually think one of their bigger issues is, aside from when they signed maybe a NertZ or someone, they actually haven't signed that many big name players that make you hyped as a fan. I'll tell you what, Actually, one move that would almost be a slam dunk PR move is Team Liquid announces the return of prodigal son EliGE to be our star player again. I think actually fans, if you're a Team Liquid fan, aside from a really top player joining, that's about the best you can hope for. That's not a bad sort of PR move to rescue the situation that essentially a player might be just leaving your squad because he thinks it's doomed. So I can sort of see all sides of it, even though I do think there's no like perfect move here. Like I actually think if it is indeed true, I think on both sides it's kind of a Hail Mary.
I can see that, like from a PR standpoint, I can see it, but from in the server, like just watching the way they play, and
it's bizarre, isn't it?
Just disregarding the Furia game, which was, I'll give them credit where it's due. The last two maps were phenomenal, but I just look at Mirage, the first map in the series, and how I look at Naf, right, and how I don't like his style of being a passive player. I want him to evolve because he needs to. He's struggling right now, doing the same thing over and over again, as Vaz said in Far Cry 3. That's madness. That's insanity. You got to switch it up. Robs did. He joins Vitality, and you can see how much more of a star lurk. He's kind of pushing the limits of what he can do in that role. I don't think Naf really does that yet, even though he's got the chops. He can still aim and he can still frag out. And then you look at Ultimate, who, despite what was a pretty solid, debut, you compare him to someone like Molodoy, and Molodoy just clears him, dude. He just completely clears him. He's too aggressive sometimes, or he's completely passive, right? He asks, from what I heard from Yakinder, I think it won the HLTV confirmed episode as well, he usually dictates what he wants to do most of the times, and the team gives him a lot of space to work with, which is fine if you're getting the results, if you're hitting his shots. He misses so many sitters. It's insane. You can't be missing shots like this at this level of Counter-Strike. And then you just look at, just watch his demo. There's so much over peeking, someone's positioning. It feels a little questionable. In fact, it reminds me a little bit of Dexter when he plays in a group stage, right? Where he's just trying to do a little too much, it feels like. You have these two pieces, and now you take a Twistzz, who is still a bit of a playmaker, right? And you get an EliGE, who historically has struggled with, playing a little bit too safe, a little bit too baity, as people say. But at least now he's kind of opening up on FaZe. You can see him taking the initiative. I think one of the highest rated T-Set players, I believe, in the Blast Bounty event. So he is heading in the right direction. But then you come back to this team. Is he going to just, go back to the shell where, I need to do more. I need to, have those 1.3 ratings and starts being a bit more of a baity player again, where you already have Naf, who's struggling right there, and you have Ultimate is just missing all his shots. So in the server, I feel like this would be a step back. This would be a regression to what they were a few months ago, which is still pretty fucking shitty, if you ask me.
I mean, we can talk about the rumor forever. I love the fact, though, that both of you started by saying this is absolutely not happening, and then painted scenarios where what it would look like if it did happen. So there's some fan somewhere who's just drunk all that Kool-Aid and is going to be bitterly disappointed down the line.
It would also be just a direct swap, I'm assuming, right? So there wouldn't be too much money involved as well.
Yeah,
so from the org standpoint, from both Liquid and FaZe, they're like, I don't know if you want to spend a lot of money, but if this swap could happen, it's great. So I can see a world where that makes sense.
By the way, that, to tie into what you said at the beginning, though, Sam, that's another reason why I think if you do a move like this, it almost has to be like a contract for contract trade. Because actually, probably the most underwhelming thing about Team Liquid is when you do like the overview, like you did there, of how many players. Because the real problem with that is if you could go back in time, and I understand each roster move is separate and has to be considered in the context of the moment. But if you look at the bigger picture, you'd rather have just gone back in time and signed like a super team with all that money. Because instead, what you actually did, partly by the way, due to the fact he kept letting people be IGL who probably shouldn't and didn't really have a future being IGL, because you did that like 3 times. What you've basically done is you've just like burned like 3 or 4 different rosters and cores. So at this point in time, at the end, when suddenly you end up with like maybe EliGE can come back and we could sort of keep Ultimate, that just sounds whack if you're a Team Liquid fan, unfortunately. Whereas like if it was like you just hadn't spend money and you're just a budget roster like Complexity, by the way, people are somewhat understanding. They get that you didn't have the sort of money to push the boat out and go really nuts. But the problem with Liquid is they've basically just taken so many shots and failed with them that at the end, I also can't turn around. Remember, we're all making fun of Falcons for this. I can't turn around and go, hey, just chuck like 10 million more in. Like, no, actually, you have to sort of, this is why I think the idea of bringing back someone you think you know and could be like a solid piece. Because by the way, I'm also going to go ahead and speculate. If this is a real move, then I'm almost certain within the team, people like Naf and other members of the squad have had to have signed off on it as well. Like, I don't know who those would be. Maybe it could be a NertZ or someone. Someone out there actually also presumably agreed. I don't think you just do this to the other 4 players. Like, hey, by the way, Twistzz is leaving, but EliGE is back. Like, what? So to me, like, this isn't a terrible move, but you do look at the squad and you just think like, because here's the real problem, Bleh. It was never like one player was going to fix this squad. So to me, if this one move doesn't work, and you're just resetting the clock again. You're just wiping the whole squad and taking like 2 players again. The problem is you've done that too many times that you've tried making all these different calls that have never worked out. Because I still think the most bizarre thing about specifically Liquid is, bro, every time I look at the names on paper, I'm like, they should be way better than this. Because, like at the moment, they can barely win a LAN game. Like, it doesn't matter what happens in the game, by the way. They can frag, they can win the first match. It doesn't matter. They just can't win series. But I look at the names, I'm like, a bunch of these names should be good, though. This should be like a top, forget even top like 10 minutes. I still think when I look at this roster on paper, it should be like the sixth best team in Counter-Strike or something, but they're far from that.
Or at least have like one good day, right? They just
exactly. No, they can't even trip over them, It's mental, innit?
They can't even fluke it, and that's so frustrating. I'm looking at some of the lineups while I was going through it, and I'm like,
they've had some good players, mate.
Fallen was on the team. Look at what Fallen is doing right now, right? With his favorite team. He's IGLing, he's calling in English with international line. He's rifling out of his fucking mind. And he was on a team. That team didn't quite pan out. Who did they pick up? They pick up Shocks, right? And then they had Grim in the meantime. Again, Grim was very young at the time, surrounded by star players. He couldn't really shine. They weren't even able to. They took the risk of picking up an NA young potential star. They weren't able to really hone him to be what we could see in complexity, how he was really kind of carrying the team right now in the absence of EliGE, right? They weren't able to do that. They picked up Shocks, and then they had Nitro. The Nitro leaves, and the Kinder comes in, and the Kinder's like, let's try. They tried it. Let's try a couple of, unknown players. I mean, Rainwaker is more unknown player than Patsy, which was, I feel like, a worthwhile risk to take, right? Din lost as well. And it just this... And then we have, of course, famously Cadian coming in. They had
Super Team,
and a Super Team. Even I was like, this looks pretty solid. Completely fucking failed. Twistzz like, I'm going to start calling. It just feels like, and this might sound like, the Reddit hive mind or HLTV forum thing, and this is something used so vaguely all the time in these sort of discourses, the management, right? The management. And I feel at this point, you got to look at the management because there's clearly no leadership in the team. When I say in the team, I'm not talking about in the server, but like just overall, no one's overseeing it. Or if they are indeed overseeing it, they're doing a pretty piss poor job. Because I look at FaZe and, you look at FaZe, it's Carrigan. You know it's Carrigan. He's the one. He's kind of this talismanic figure, and and if a move doesn't pan out, he's going to take it on the chin and try to work with it, right? In the case of Liquid, it's more like I'm genuinely left scratching my head, wondering, okay, like where does the buck stop? Like who's the one who's signing off on this, or is this something by committee? Because if that's the case, guys, for 4 years it hasn't been working out. Something has to change. But I look at this lineup right now, and I'm like, this should still work, and it just doesn't. I don't get it.
Were you, this is actually a question, and it kind of ties into what you just said that I want to pose to both of you, and I wanted to do it earlier, which is after the major and some of the comments that were made by players in interviews, specifically NAF, were you surprised that during the player break, Liquid didn't make a roster move? Because the way NAF was speaking after they got knocked out, I thought it was all but done, that he was out the door. And then nothing changed.
Especially if you remember, it was not that long around that time that announcement came out that in the future you don't even get to play the game Team Liquid's been playing with this roster, where you keep the 2 NA and then the 2 European, and then you keep 1 from another region so you can always play and be in the Americas qualifier. Since that's even gone, on paper, there's actually not a reason, aside from he's a legacy player, to keep NAF. Like, he's playing pretty badly. As you say, in that interview, he almost goes out of his way to set up himself the idea he's going to get kicked, or like that he should be kicked. It's like one of these two. It's actually, I'll put it this way, that interview was crazy for like the lack of confidence of the player in it. It sounded like he was almost just like, right, give me my cigarette and put the blindfold on me, like, fuck you know. Like, and then the joke is like, you almost feel like he himself was like, walked in on Monday, like, shit, I'm still employed. Like, fuck yeah, give me a jersey then. Let's keep going. Like, I know what you mean. That felt like the most obvious, like, telegraphed, we're going to do a move, and he's the one leaving.
It's so crazy because you look at any other player, like you look at, for example, Dexter getting cut from FlyQuest, or anyone just suddenly getting cut. They're like, yeah, well, I'm not going to talk about it, but everyone's kind of a little vague. Everyone's a little bit pissed off or whatever. And now it's like, yeah, this totally makes sense. I should get cut. And imagine the team's like, no, actually, we got faith in you. He's like,
I know.
Why? Why do you have faith in me? No, at that point,
like the hard negotiation isn't like, please let me stay. It's like, you have to stay. Like, I'm not good though. No, you've got to be in the next roster.
I believe in you. It's like a Disney movie, but made by Ralph Bakshi or something. It makes no sense. And then, genuinely, right? Look, we all know NAF, top 20 player multiple times, top 5 in the world at times, really solid player. This year has been a complete fall off. But when you have someone who just has no confidence in himself coming into the game, having to play someone, man, he's lurking out A-Ramp and Mirage. He doesn't have any confidence in himself. Is he going to go for that play? Is he going to try and catch a timing, create a bit of space for his team? I don't think so, because these are very closely married, these ideas of these concept of confidence and making a play in the server itself. So the fact that they stuck with him, I think was I won't lie, I think it's a mistake. I still haven't been proven otherwise. Sure, they had this win against Furia online. When they're going to be playing on LAN, literally, I think today or tomorrow, I think we're going to be proven right that this was a mistake. But again, who made this decision, right? You guys you struggling with results. It's like, we're not a real, what was it Cody said? The crazy fucking tweet where it's like, we're not really a team or something. Right.
Oh, that was
Twistzz or something, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was Twistzz. He said that.
2 weeks ago. I've actually got
Which
it
would
on my
also be
screen
even
'cause-
spicier if he's then leaving. It's like, you can almost make that the sentence. Like, we're not even a real team. That's why I'm going to a real one. See, yeah. I'm like,
it's insane. So here's the thing. He's like, he made the decision. I'm assuming, considering the pull he has in the team and Shua just come in, he would have had a big voice in Nav staying back, all right? Or rather him forcing him to stick around. And literally 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, you're like, yeah, we're not really a team. So who was making the call there, once again, to retain Nav? Because clearly Nav would have been completely fine with him getting cut. Right.
This is why when you ask about the management, by the way, the other problem I have with this Liquid squad is if this move ends up happening, I know we're predicating a lot of this on like a rumor basically here, but the point is, aside from that, this is actually one of the most mysterious rosters. Like I say, you look at it on paper, they've done some good roster moves. Like if you think about it, right, 2 of their last roster moves were add NertZ, right, on paper of all the players that were available. That was one of the best like star aggressive riflers you could add in the game. That on paper looks like a slam dunk signing. And then when the roster didn't work and they tried it all year, then you add Shuey, who again, remember, everyone forgets this now because we all rewrite history when the results change. That was just supposed to fail when they kicked him. That was supposed to be like their version of when Ents kicked Alexi V. You go downhill and you never get back again. The problem is Mouse not only has been awesome, but actually the Shuey edition, it seems to have done nothing is the weirdest part. Like, you would think again, well, there's a bunch of good players. He's got like Nav Twistzz, and somehow that hasn't changed it. So what I don't get is, this also makes me wonder if part of the change in the management was, let's say of those 18 people, the first 16 are all like Twistzz type moves. It's like, right, I want this person. Okay, we can get him. Right, which one do you want out of these ones? This almost makes it look at the end like those last 2 signings. Maybe they aren't the players he wanted, or maybe he wanted NertZ, but then not Shuey or something. Because the other weird thing to me is that's why Twistzz leaving is so bizarre, because it's like, mate, even if you don't fuck with this roster, surely the most obvious move is you just take Naft and or Ultimate and do another swap, because surely on paper you're supposed to say, if you're Twistzz, like, wait a minute, Shu here the IGL, NertZ another fragger, and me a star. That's actually 3 of the harder roles to nail down. Surely all we need is a tweak now. We're one, and look, it is Falcons like 1 player away, but like you saw this one seems more plausible. The difference is some of the past ones were a train wreck. You had to change like 3 people. I get it,
I mean, the only thing I had to change right now, Naf, let's be real, you can easily find another look. It might not be at the level of Naf in his heyday, which is like literally last year, but still, someone competent enough to not be a complete liability. And for Ultimate, man, even though I've been kind of shitting on him so far, I think is serviceable, is good enough if the team...
Yeah, but as you said, mate, his real problem for real is the existence of the Molodoi type players, because the problem is there is a perception right now that if you go to Eastern Europe, you just trip over AWPers. Like, they're everywhere, mate. Like Jambo, Molodoi, there's a million of them. And so his problem is, unfortunately, he just seems like the fucking McDonald's at home, doesn't he? It's like he doesn't quite have the same fucking flavour, the spice. It's just a bit of whatever in he. So I feel like people would take even a swap of like an unknown player. Essentially, you just have to have the right Eastern European flag and everyone will give you a go now, thanks to Molodoi.
And I feel like because of that, he is trying a little too hard, right? Like, you can see it. You just watch any of his games, he's going to peak, going to re-peak. Again, punished so many times, missing sitters, and I feel like he's feeling that stressed, right? Because of the likes of Molodoi, because of the fact that the team is struggling quite a bit, and it's like, oh, when are they going to start looking at me? When are they going to be like, all right, this guy's not consistent enough. He's not making too many plays. So I feel like the environment is also affecting how he's playing the game, right? I think they desperately need a few wins for it to kind of coalesce. But I won't lie, like even if they might hit a peak, let's say they have a deep run over here, let's say they beat Vitality somehow magically, do I expect them to replicate this come the next, let's say, 2 or 3
That would be
years?
our luck as well, Sam, that we do this whole episode about a team that's failed all year, never did anything. And then before you release it, they already beat Vitality or something ridiculous like the day before. And everyone's like, hey, they're back. They're actually good. Like, we do the whole episode. They're fucking shit. Yeah. Like, I love it.
My big plan was to drop this on Monday, and I'm suddenly sitting here being like,
Yeah.
Shit. Like, I see how we're going to do this whole thing and they're going to win the whole damn thing. And that's going to
course.
be the
So we need to
episode
double
that comes
down right
out.
now, and I'm going to
Yeah.
double down. I'm going to lose, obviously.
What we'll do is record two endings, like
Two
a
separate
choose your adventure book, and just edit it in later.
I was also looking at, and this ties into, I feel like, the entire, we talk about management, talk about the players' personalities and everything, and even from the coaching standpoint, which, you know,
Yeah, that's a big deal too. People forget that aspect, mate.
let's be very real, right? They've had a lot of changes. Adren was there initially, right? Then he gets removed for Daps, you know, the forever, like the.
By the way, that one even shocks me because I really thought, I know he later on went to all the games and even came back as a player, but
Yeah.
I actually thought on paper, Daps sounded like the guy who could have been there for years, mate. He's always
It
had
makes
that rep
sense.
within the NA scene. People do respect him. Obviously, he wasn't as a very good player, but the people like that, by the way, the second they want to be a coach, there's loads of teams will take him in that wouldn't have signed him as a player. I can't believe how short an amount of time he was there, though, mate. That feels like he was only there for a cup of coffee. You know what I mean?
They actually forgot about that, right? He was there.
Yeah, it's
It was
wild,
such a
isn't
short
it?
period
He
of
had his
time.
coffee.
And then you had, you know, Zeus come in 2034. We know how that completely fell apart. Then you got Mither, right? And then here's the thing. They removed Mither when they took out JKS. When they bought in NertZ, and I got Demarzu Rover,
Yes.
whoever, you know, as the analyst getting promoted to the coaching role. I was a bit surprised. I think Mither said, made a couple of tweets as well. Is like, I wish I had a little bit more time with these guys. Like, Mither is not necessarily like an S tier, major winning coach, but I think he has enough under his belt where he
Yes,
can be
legit
respected.
experience,
He's a
yeah.
very, very legitimate coach. He's worked with some very big names as well. So the fact that they did not give enough time with him. Also, I've spoken to the guy. He seems like a very amiable person. He's not going to come in, you know, just laying down the law and being, listen to me, boys. He's not that sort of person as well. So they take him out after a very short period of time, literally I think a few months basically, which for me was a massive shock. And then now they get in Flashie, who, look, he's been in Blade School of Coaching for a while, so obviously he knows what to do in the server. For me, the problem is, and I think has always been for this Liquid, I wouldn't say the players, like the org has been the personalities, right? You're talking about Twistzz, who's won, you know, majors, has won all the big events out there. You're talking about Shui and how, you know, he's got such a strong voice in that team and in the mouse lineup, and which is why he's here right now. Obviously, we're going to be delving
And
much
was
into-
kicked for some reason that we still don't know why.
Exactly.
And all I'm going to say is it looks really bad, Shuey, that you walked in this other roster and it's not working, mate. It's starting to look like you were the problem. You know what I mean?
And it seems like a personality thing as well. At least to just reading between the lines. You know, I've spoken to Exertion, a lot of the players on the mouse, and these guys are just what's his face, Torji, for example. These are like bubbly, super fun, nice
Yeah, yeah.
kids, right? And then they're like, yeah, it didn't quite click. I'm like, it can't be in the server. You guys are doing very
No,
very
mate,
good.
I've always said this. It was implied to me that it was something like they just didn't want him specifically as a person in the team anymore. Well, you draw your own conclusions, but I know what you mean. It wasn't that they thought he was a shit IGL, I'll tell you that.
So there we go. Now we got Twistzz. So I'm not saying he's a bad personality. I think he's a very strong personality, right?
Yes.
Like, you have to deal with Naf, who he himself has said, he's like, I'm just like super depressed right now. Like the sloth meme is coming to life, which is kind of sad. He's struggling in the server. He's got no mojo, so to speak. You're looking at, you know, Shuhei, who, again, as you just discussed right now, he seems to, I'm not saying a personality problem, but a strong personality, which can be a little aggravating. And then you have Ultimate, who seems to have zero confidence right now in the way he's playing. And NertZ are just smiling, wondering, what the fuck have I walked into? I think Flashie could be a really solid in-game coach. I don't think he has experience to be a leader yet. I'm sure down the line he possibly could, but he's just, you know, going off the deep end here with these personalities. Also with the problems.
And he only joined like last month as well. Like, bro, give me a chance. Can I actually have like a run with this squad? Like, immediately we change their play. What the fuck?
Listen, they at least want a map, right? So, sorry, a game against Furious. I'll take that. But here's the thing, like, you know, he has so much work ahead of him to, you know, to really become a coach of men. So it feels like, again, coming out of management, they seem to be trying to find someone who can center the team. Does that make sense? Kind of like the dad of the team, and they haven't found that yet.
Is it fair though? I mean, I'm delving into rumors.
There's
and
the
gossip
thumbnail, by the
now.
way. Team Liquid daddy issues? Question mark?
Daddy, I know. But I mean, since the Cadian Zeus super team vibe, like
Sure.
this
Oh, God,
conversation has been up, which has been, and we've heard it time and time again. I'm so sorry, Twistzz, because I do actually, I think you're a freaking cool
Yeah,
dude.
sure.
But I'm gonna,
Sure.
yeah, let me dunk on
Sure.
you a bit. We've all heard that behind the scenes, there is one player making all the decisions, deciding who's coming in, deciding who's coaching, deciding who's not coaching. We saw that wonderful interview, Shuei saying, "Oh, Twistzz even said this is your team now. You can,
exactly.
like we
Which I don't think you realize how
down.
telling that phrasing was. I love it. I love how like naive that phrasing
It's
is.
a little finger coming in and being like, you are the king. You are.
He's like,
You
look,
are
there's
the
a lot of
king.
rumors that Twistzz controls the team, but that's not true. He even said I could say this. Like
Exactly. But
you're
so
giving a
that
break.
it was curious to me
I love it.
that the coach that comes in, while someone who has, learned under the tutelage of one of the best, is still not a dominant personality.
Yeah,
You weren't
absolutely.
bringing in someone. It is curious that, one, it took so long to find a coach, because for a long time they didn't have a coach. And then two, the one you bring in is not a loud voice. And it immediately took me back to this rumor of like that there is this player that's now in charge of everything. And I was like, it's really problematic, I would presume, if that is what is actually happening behind the scenes, because then it doesn't matter what pieces you get. It doesn't matter what you do. You're always going to have a situation, which ironically is what we're seeing in Liquid, which is just, it's not working. No matter what they put in place, they can't make it click. I mean, this lineup, and I mean, Thorin, you just said it. If you look at this lineup, it should have been good. It was when Shuey, and they took him on trial. That's the other thing. It wasn't like they gave him a chance. You signed a contract, which must tell me that you were all like, oh, okay, actually, this dude this will work. Even though they did, I thought
if you remember the first LAN when they had him like for a few days, they even just completely bombed that PGL. That on paper, that's not a very strong field. You should have had a chance for like a playoff run or something. No, the problem is they've essentially bombed almost every tournament, and it's only like that one. Was it like Dallas or something? They had like one run that was half decent. So if you look at it, you even could argue, Sam, that because he technically was on trial, you could even have been really cynical if you thought it didn't work and just say we're not going to make it a real contract. Like, okay, it was a trial. Sorry, it didn't work out. Look, we thought it would, but like it just was. The results aren't there, but instead they've committed to it. So yeah, I know what you mean. When you commit to that, you don't then think you've got another roster move coming. You assume like you're going to give this roster time to cook. And like you say, you just signed the coach. Presumably you give the guy a bit of time with this team so then he can figure out who you want in or out. That's why part of this is like, and it's also, by the way, this is why if you Twistzz, you're not beating the allegations, mate, that you just secretly puppet and run this whole team. Because now it looks like your whole thing's like, right, kick him. Well, we can't kick him right now, mate. Right, kick him then. We can't. Well, then kick me then. I'm leaving. Like, what the fuck? Like, what's the options here?
It's kind of like the NA Nico, right? Except it's real. Look, and also, look, here's be real. A coach should have the authority and just a presence to be able to choose someone. I can't imagine Flashie chewing out Nav, for example, right? He's been around for such a long time. It's like, hey, yeah, Nav, you could probably do this better. I just don't see him. And it's not even his fault, like you said. He doesn't have the experience. This is his first real coaching gig, apart from being assistant coach, which is a whole different ball game, right? There's just about the game, what's in the server and everything.
He jumped in the lines then on this one too, as well. He's not giving himself an easy first gig, is he, at all?
Absolutely not. Like I said, this is like learning on the job, on the fly. And now you're dealing with like a bunch of kids, but he's not just a bunch of kids. Some of them are major fucking winners.
Some of these might be divas, bro. You got your fucking work cut out for you. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you can't even be like, shut the fuck up. You haven't done shit. No. They have done a lot of shit.
Like, I know.
Like, top 10 players in the world you have right there. A kid, a prodigy of an IGL coming in from EU. So now, when they go up against your idea, something you have, I don't feel like he's got the agency, and I just feel like his hands are kind of tied here, right? And if this entire thing about Twistzz kind of controlling who comes and out goes, if that's what's really happening over here, when is it going to end? When he leaves, like you said, or I don't know.
Do you imagine that conversation with Blade when Flashie goes, so I've been made this offer and I'm thinking of leaving. And I just, Blade has that like, it's like that naughty grin that he has when he's going to say something.
Yeah.
The smirk. I imagine the Blade smirk and he goes, that's a great opportunity. You should take it. But in his brain, he was like, don't touch that shit show. I imagine that was exactly how that conversation went down.
Okay.
But the problem is, I mean, I'm tied back.
I like the way you're making it sound like he's he's planting Flashie in like other squads, like some sort of sleeper agent to awaken at the right time. I like that. Okay.
I wouldn't put it past him. But I am curious as to like, if we have to look in the server now with the pieces that they have, how does this Liquid team win? What is it how does it work if it were going to work, other than possibly taking any sort of power away from Twistzz?
I see. Look, I was just watching the game with Furia, and after they lost the first map in Mirage, you could see a lot of things going wrong, but then they're able to turn things around. A couple of things which are very obvious for me. Firstly, Ultimate needs to really play more for the team. What I mean by that is, be more of the supportive element. Don't miss your easy shots. You don't have to do too much. You don't have to be Monacy. You don't have to be Molodoi or whatever. Just be a reliable, stable operator. Go back to the device demos and watch how he plays. He's clearly faster than device is because he's young and all of that. But just try to approach it from that standpoint where you are the role op player rather than an op star, so to speak, which he's, I feel, trying to force himself to do quite a little bit too much. For Naf, I just wish he evolved in a bit where he was a little bit more less afraid to take risks, right? Like in the modern day style of Counter-Strike, you see all these aggro lurkers and everyone. Look at Yakinder, for example, right now in Fury Team. You look at fucking Rops, right? S-tier lurkers who have evolved over time. And even Yakinder, who lost all his mojo, it was the entry and all of that. Now he's kind of adapting himself and moving around. Look at Mazinho from Mongol, for example, right? Such a young kid. And he had to kind of learn against some of the best teams out there to try and find the perfect timing, try and make those plays and not be afraid to take those deals. Because sometimes you go for the risk, someone's going to be waiting for you. And that's when you're like, I'm still going to win that deal. That's confidence. That's something you need to have, not just as an entry fragger, but also as someone who's going to be creating space for your team as a lurker. And I feel like Naf's he doesn't have that right now. So I think if he's able to activate that, and then as Duncan said, you look at the core, you look at Shuei, you look at fucking Twistzz and NertZ, we're cooking. It's like the pieces are there. It's not properly screwed in. Now, who's going to do that? I don't know. And I don't think it's flashy. It's such a personality thing. It's such a mental thing. And I know it seems like hyperbole. Everyone's like, oh, it's a mental problem. But it is a mental problem. I've seen players just completely crumble because they don't believe in themselves. And Naf's role just with a lack of belief is just getting fumbled. That's what I'm seeing right now, sir.
By the way, another thing I think's wild is the difference I always say, if you remember last year's Falcons, where they had that end score and it just didn't work, is one of the areas I can't hold against Falcons, or the players who joined, is they basically were a CSGO team that joined Falcons for CS2, and then we just turned out like maybe some of them aren't that good in CS2. That doesn't even apply to the three big names in Liquid. They've all been really good in CS2. Like Twistzz has been actually straight fire even in these bad Team Liquid lineups. NertZ, by the way, was excellent and heroic at times. Looked like a very, very good player. Like he himself maybe could have been a Falcons type player. And then lastly, Shu here actually had like a decent amount of success with those. Like, and he was sort of cooking. So it's not even like these players, like, they just can't play anymore or they need to. They're all, in theory, I even feel like, by the way, if they all go to other teams tomorrow, surely they all find way more success and they become the players we remember. So I think it's so bizarre. Because like I say, this, except for maybe not having the AWPer, this isn't even one of those rosters where it's like you just don't have any good pieces. You have on paper some excellent pieces. Like even add in, Shu, he's supposed to even be the kind of IGL you'd think these players would want. Like he's just played in a mouse where they definitely give everyone a lot of space and freedom to do things. And supposedly he's supposed to be this like brilliant, like intuitive caller. The whole point of why Twistzz even tried to be an IGL is the idea he wants to have contribution to the calls, but maybe in the end it just turns out he's a good secondary caller. By the way, you've already got some of your team built in there, and he's been a good fragger the whole time. And then NertZ, like on paper, was supposed to just walk in, strong, aggressive rifle, and just put production straight up. I'll even say one area that I do think makes them look bad now in Liquid. Look, I know this is also doing the whole Yakinder Fury now looks good. It's the same thing with JKS. JKS looks way better now he's in FlyQuest. Well, here's the problem. The reason you kicked JKS and the reason why NAF probably thought he was fired is because actually you could argue it was like some fucking Sophie's Choices that was playing worse of the two of them. But the difference is the perception was NAF's like the Team Liquid made man, and if you needed him for the spot at the time. But I'll tell you what, if you look at it now, like they were both trying to do sort of the same kind of role, it looked like, and I don't even know. Maybe if you'd known what you know now, you stick with JKS and cut NAF or something. Who knows? Because the difference is, NAF at times in the team has been more of like a bigger presence. I don't think that's even what he's supposed to do at this point in his career. To me, he's more in sort of like, I know it sounds mad because people forget these people grow up. He's sort of like an NA Rain at this point in time. He's like a quality veteran player who you want to contribute a bit, but you're not making him a star. And I'll just throw this out there as well. The other reason why the NAF one is a bit puzzling to me they didn't move on is because I have like a lens I try to apply to big name teams when they cut a player that you remember fondly. I always ask this question. Think of Magic's now. Think if they were to cut Rain tomorrow. The question goes, if he's so good, which of their rival teams picks him up tomorrow if they cut him? And the answer usually is none of them, unfortunately, which is why you know that maybe you held on to him for too long. You know what I mean? Like, put it this way, if NAF leaves tomorrow, isn't it just like JKS? Isn't he just going to go to like, Complexity, or it's going to be some like low level? He's not going to get picked 100%. Up himself by a big squad. He's not going to be on G2 tomorrow. Yeah, unfortunately.
And this is something we can go harken all the way back to when Vitality won the major in Paris, right? Everyone said once Dupree got cut, I was like, what a fucking baller move. Such a good move. And they're like, no, how dare you? He's a legend. He's a legend. Absolutely. You won the major. He's growing older. There's so many younger players out there. You have to be ruthless. You're here to win championships. You're here to be the best team in the world. I'm sure every team in the top 7 to 8 would be wanting to do that, right? And then you look at the match.
Bro, Spirit even just kicked fucking Zontics out of the Cologne with good numbers too. They're like, listen, sorry, it was great, but you know,
and I feel like it's a bit of an overcorrection in the right
way. True.
So when they kept Magics for the first half of this year after they won the major in Shanghai, guys, he had a life game in the final game. Sure, phenomenal stuff, but you have so many young players when they didn't get Kyosuke, whatever reasons, maybe want to play Monacy or whatever. I'm like, you guys are fumbling this. And now they're like, yeah, we won Cologne. So anyway, you're out. And I fucking love it. And then you look at the side of Liquid and you're like, yeah, wait, you don't believe in yourself? I believe in you. Believe in the power of friendship. I'm like, what friendship? You guys don't even look like your friends anymore, right?
By the way, that is also how rough that is. Like, what the fuck is that? Where it's like Magic's like, you did have that life game. So I say, you could have a whole season. Zontics didn't even play bad, and they're like, get the fuck out, Zontics. Like,
get out.
What the hell? Like, what did I do? Like, I thought it was pretty good.
And most of the times, dude, like if you look at all these roster changes, these ruthless ones, the big name ones, everyone, they might be clamoring for some heads or whatever. But in the long run, it does usually work out. You look at the stats, it usually works out. And the fact that Liquid don't, with 19 or 18 player changes in the past 4 years, still haven't gone for any ruthless cut like this when they really need it. For me, I'm like, what are you guys really doing? Like,
if anything, they go the other way. Don't they wait too long on almost every player? It feels like, you know what I mean?
Who was washed at that point in time?
I know. I still don't get that one.
I really don't get so they're willing to spend money. They're willing to go for big names. But here's the thing:
if they had a time machine, Bleh, this would be one of the greatest rosters ever made. The problem is they pick these players up years later. I know.
Oh my gosh, I have just realized, I can't remember when he left, but you were talking about like the mind games. They got rid of their mental coach as well recently. True. And I mean, Edward had been there. He'd been there through the whole Zeus Cadian debacle, stuck around. They've recently, I think it must have just been, was it just after the major? Just before the major? I'll have to check. I only just remembered, but I'm like,
MindBodyEsports, right? Like,
even he got.
Who I've heard a lot of good things about, by the way. And he
also has an amazing track record. I can tell you, the amount of times he's gone to teams in all different games and they win the championship, and then he goes to another team. It's crazy, yeah,
dude. Like every team he's been with have managed to kind of break through that ceiling, which was kind of stopping them, right? Win a big event, maybe a Kato, a Cologne. I've seen him many times. No, everyone has a good thing to say about him, but the fact that he wasn't able to salvage a team is insane to me, right? Like,
that's kind of.
And if you remember, he was actually the original performance coach who, despite all that success, got wrecked because, much like the more recent Lars Robel no PC bootcamp, he did the famous one where they did that retreat before they made the super team to try and bond everyone, etc. And unfortunately, if you notice, people nowadays, what they do is they just wait till you fail, then they rewrite history. Like, oh, what a moron! Why are you doing that? Even though, as I say, if you did that when you were in the Strats, you were a genius. Like that was you were a visionary, and that's why they won. So unfortunately, he was also the original meme in that sense. I don't think that helped.
It's just curious that he was on the chopping block, right? Like the whole mental game, and I was like, okay, he's gone as well now. Like they are throwing everything at the wall.
You guys have personality and mental issues. Let's kick the mental coach. Great job, guys. I don't know.
Do you know?
Also, I'll just throw this joke in here because you know what? Fuck it. One, people have made the mistake. They've crossed the line and attacked me. And when you attack me, I empty all the silos. So you know what? Here's the obvious joke. Since they did have that coach last year, then we also know that technically ChatGPT can't coach the team. There you go, Bleh. That's a free one for you, mate. Listen, no one touch that. Just leave that. Let it just float out there. Just let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go.
Oh shit.
Okay.
I could feel fucking Cyberdyne wake up from that one. Fucking hell.
All right, we're gonna move on.
Let's read it back in. Read it back in. It's all good.
Do you know, I do feel like this player, I was so excited about him in like his rookie year, but I just feel like he has really got the short end of the stick time and time again. And that's NertZ, because obviously he was part of the ends lineup. There's a very obvious reason he wasn't going to Falcons.
Yep.
So he's unlucky.
I know,
so he ends up at Heroic. He does a really good job considering like when he got there, everyone kind of
did someone sign his whole core to Falcons again? The one team he's not allowed to join. Like this can't get a break. It's bad, isn't it? It's actually bad.
He gets to Liquid and I'm like, Yes, like NertZ is
Finally.
finally getting
Yes,
his flowers. This is where he belongs. And then the team just looks like shit. And I'm like, how is this happening? Because he's
mental,
such
isn't
a
it?
good player. And it just feels like every move. And I know that there's so many players in history where we could probably actually go back. I mean, you would have them, Thorin, where you could go back and the greatest that never was, because for whatever reason, the cards just didn't fall in their favor. It's starting to feel like that for NertZ for me, and it breaks my heart a little bit.
And it's so crazy to me because you look at his countrymen. You're looking at someone like Flames. You look at Spinks, and you see what they're achieving.
They're one of the best teams in the world, yeah.
Exactly. And then you look at NertZ, he's been around for quite a while, right? He's delivered time and
He's
time
arguably
again.
just as good as these guys as well. You look at any of
Just
those other
as
Israeli
good.
players, he's as good as all of them, mate. And Spinks, yeah.
And also his personality, if having spoken to him and from his teammates as well, they're like, he's a lovely guy, super cheerful, up tempo. So he had a great run in ends, got unlucky. Pretty, very, very serviceable and heroic as well, considering the circumstances. Now comes to Liquid, and like you said, he's supposed to finally blossom in his team. It makes sense. You have Twistzz, veteran rifler. You're part of this core. There's so much faith being put into you, and I guess it's kind of cursed, which is so funny because whenever you talk about this entire Liquid curse, NertZ never gets brought into conversation at all. Because he is still delivering, right? But no one speaks about him and how much he's going to have to go through. But I feel like in this instance, I feel like he is genuinely just unlucky. I can't pin anything on NertZ as a person in the server, but nothing, basically.
That's my thing. Sometimes the cards
Unlucky.
just don't fall in your favor, and that sucks. Okay, so taking a look at this lineup, are we saying the only way to save it is to change a piece? Is that the route that we have to go?
This is why it depends if the rumor's true or not. Because here's the problem. I'll tell you right now. I can both step outside myself and look in and go, what a ridiculous bastard. But then I also come back inside and go, no, actually, all those thoughts are correct. So here's the real problem. If they don't make the EliGE Twistzz move, I've got to say, I am a bit out on this roster now, which is mad because I was the person, I'll even tell you, before the major, who was even messaging people I like in the team, telling them like, I still think this roster looks fucking great though. Give it a bit more time. Maybe it can still work. Maybe there's some key. Maybe the player break changes it. Whatever it might be. But the problem is, even though I don't think this roster is that good on paper, part of me, I will absolutely admit, if EliGE rejoins, I'll find a way to drink all the Kool-Aid and make myself believe it can work though. I'll do the same thing. I'll go, but wait a minute. But EliGE and that could work. Like, wait a minute. And then all the HLTV top 20s just flying by my eyes. Like, I'll just make myself believe it could work. Much like Team Liquid, apparently.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be the wrong sort of Kool-Aid there. Don't get that one lie.
Oh, it's Molly Jonestown.
Actual Jonestown Kool-Aid. I will say this. I'm going to go the other side. I'm going to assume the change isn't going to happen, mainly because EliGE is in EU right now. I doubt he wants to come back. But then again, Liquid are basically just majority EU anyway. So anyway, I don't think that's going to happen.
My joke is they should just do a full transfer. Like Twistzz should just move into that barren Polish apartment that EliGE has. Yeah, and he just moves back. Yes, do the full swap. Yeah, absolutely. It's already set up, mate. You see, I'm going, yeah.
And then EliGE goes to Twistz's apartment. It's like, oh, what are these? It's got furniture. I feel, and here's a hot.
But then what's weird is when he goes in the back, there's like a punching bag with Twistz's face on it. It looks like it was there for months and months. Like, what's going on in here? Oh, don't worry about that. That's just my old Team Liquid room.
I'm going to say this, and this is going to be sound wild, right? I think NAF isn't going to survive till the end of the season. I feel they're just going to go for a Band-Aid, fix it, whatever, and just YOLO it. I don't think they'll last all the way through because I just can't see someone who has no faith in himself, right? And if the team doesn't find any success, it's just going to keep going down and down and down. You don't have a coach with experience handling personalities like that. You don't have a mental coach. Your assistant coach is, just a new kid on the block, basically. I don't think NAF's going to get fixed in this environment. I still believe NAF can maybe grind it back, maybe playing in complexity, perhaps, dude. Complexity. You have Grim. You might actually get more new belief in himself joining a fresh team rather than just sticking around, if you ask me. But I feel NAF is going to be let go come, I don't know, around October or something before the major. I really feel that's going to happen.
And obviously, because this is going to come out after the Blast finals, do you have a different opinion in case they beat Vitality and go
They're not beating
far in
Vitality.
that?
They're not beating Vitality. I'm not even going to come up with an alternative. There's no way in hell are they beating Vitality right now.
I mean, the joke there is we should say, see, I told you the roster could always work. I'd actually go the other way. I'd go, you know what? Maybe Vitality is washed. Maybe that is the end of the era. Maybe they're never going to be good again. Congratulations to Falcon the Spirit, the new best teams in the world.
So just get, you just swap out Robs with the Nav. Perfect. There we go. That would be wild.
Do you think that? I mean, so we haven't brought up Ultimate's name in terms of like moving out of here, but obviously when the original signing, there was so much negativity around Ultimate coming in because he was the unknown and no one had anything nice to say.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we've had a little bit of time to actually look at him, do you think, say for example, he moves out of Liquid, does he stay in the tier 1 scene? Do you think he's kind of solidified himself there?
Isn't the problem he just go, I'm sorry, I feel like that's a player where it's not just even like player-wise. He also hasn't really built like a big like persona around himself. He hasn't got like, in fact, people don't even really know him from interviews. So I feel like, unfortunately, I'll be cynical and say, I imagine he'll just be in like some bet click type team tomorrow where Polish players are going to find to guess.
I think he could, excuse me, I think it'd probably be in the NIP heroic.
Okay.
You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like you can obviously speak English.
Oh, he could be like a heroic type player or OG or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And maybe I could potentially see him evolve as a player. We've seen this happen in the past as well. Even with Operas, they say, this is his first big team, right? So maybe with a little bit lesser pressure, with less bullshit happening, he can maybe evolve. But I look at like the top 15 teams right now. I don't see anyone picking him up over anyone, honestly. Actually, maybe a game of Legion, for example. Again, tier 1.5 team, so to speak. But I feel the fact that he does have that experience in Liquid, all these players also can speak English, would open more opportunities for him as opposed to someone like Waladoy. If, for example, Furia crumbles, he's just going to go back to a Russian-speaking team, right? I feel like I don't want to count out Ultimate. I still feel he's got the right chops. He's just trying to do a little too much at the moment. That's the problem.
Also, here's the one angle I just want to introduce. If you're watching the show, Naf, all I'm going to tell you is this. This would have been the most juicy offer you could have had years ago, so I'll give you it again. Do you want to play with Simple? I think we can make it happen. If you want to play with Simple, I think I can make it happen for you, man. It's going to be tier 2 online cops every day of your life, but you want it.
But you're playing with Simple.
You can play like Simple as well, yeah.
I was talking there though for the last few minutes as if Liquid's just going to disband because I was like, well, where does this player go? What happens to this?
Chance would be a fine thing.
End. Yeah, I mean, but there is, and I kind of wanted to end this whole conversation on what you said earlier on Bleh, but I do think, I know Kassad has harped on about this forever, but Bleh brought it up as well, it seems like such a cop-out to say this, but what the F was Liquid's management doing over all these years? Because they have spent millions of dollars. They have swapped players. They have swapped coaches. They have constantly thrown money at the wall with nothing to show for it. When does the buck stop and someone goes, okay, enough is enough?
I'm looking at the management, and you have Joker Steve. I've met him in multiple events, but he's more like the team manager, right?
Yes.
You're running around for them. It's kind of like you have the guy from FaZe, for example, Eddie. Just helping team up. Great guy overall. I don't think he's the one making decisions at all. I don't think he has any say in it. It's like the cloud that is Liquid management, right? But for me, as I was going through the lineup changes they've had thus far, I'm just looking at it and I'm like, who could really genuinely sign off on this logically? I go back to the Shocks signing, for example. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And this is when they had Nath, EliGE as well. You had Nitros, NightGL.
That's some good players.
It didn't make any sense to me, right? And then, of course, you had Yakinder coming in. And it just feels like they make these pretty wacky decisions. And then they just give free reign to one guy. All right, man, Yakinder, you can pick these two players. Doesn't quite pan out, right? And then they're like, all right, now it's your turn, Twistzz, or your turn, Cadian. But I'm like, it doesn't feel like anyone's really sitting down and looking at does this make sense first overall. After that, you can see if they have chemistry and if it clicks in, but it needs to make sense overall. And that hasn't been the case for such a long time. And again, I don't have a name. I wish I had a name. Maybe Kassad knows the name. I don't know.
Also, the thing is, like, the one roster I'll forgive them is the Super Team roster. On paper, that really did look like it would work. And that is another example, I think, like the Falcons one, where you couldn't know. Those were CSGO players that were excellent. Some of them actually just haven't been that good in CS2. I'm sorry, it just didn't work out. But I know what you mean. I also think the other mistake they've made here, because if I had to speculate, I've heard in Team Liquid, they stress the idea that it's actually Nazgul, the original Team Liquid founder, like the Dutch guy. They say he has sort of final say over, like, the CS division, and, like, the League of Legends is more like the American guy, Steve Hanser. So if that's true, the problem problem here is I do think this looks like old school esports, which is that you have an owner who himself isn't like dedicated to CS. He's more like just overseeing the project. And I agree what you say. It's more like you delegate. You pick a senior player, in this case, Twistzz. Maybe it was EliGE before. You have a senior player, and it's more like you're just doing those meetings with them. Like, hey, what's going on with the team here? Like almost like a fucking corporation, like a subdivision. And you're like, hey, what's going on with your squad here? And he's like, oh, I need a change for this guy. And you just, and the problem is, I know what you mean, Bleh. It's like you approve each individual change, but you don't look at the bigger picture of like, what are we doing with this roster? Like, how does this ever work out? Because each change on paper, a bunch of them aren't terrible changes, but it's just when you look, I agree, look either at what results they got, almost nothing, or you just look at the fact that you never ever make it a roster that looks awesome on paper. There's never 5 names. There's always like one scuffed name or one guy you're waiting to get caught, or, oh, we'll give this guy 3 more months or something. And it feels like you never get to, it never feels like the roster starts. Like, right, have we got a real 5 players we believe in now? Right, okay, starting now is next season, you know.
And it's also like when you're Nazgul or whoever the management is hiring that one person, right? If that one person is the problem, it gets even more murky. It's like, you know, what's happening here? And you know, obviously you don't want to be like, oh yeah, the guy I picked to decide who, you know, how the team's going to be run, he's the problem. And then you wasted months of your time, the team's time, other players' time as well. So I feel like, I think that's a mistake they made thus far, right? You know, I feel like if they got, I genuinely agree with Kassan on this point. If they got someone who knows what his job is to be a management manager, and he's not personally in the server playing out, like that makes way more sense. That's why managers exist, because they can make these hard calls. And I feel like as much as I hate middle management, at this point, this makes sense. You need to have that, and they haven't had it. Also, some of the, you know, and kicking on Mither with, you know, barely any time to work with, and all these things, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And that's the, again, it doesn't make sense. That's the big fucking problem.
It doesn't make sense. I think what I should touch on what you said is kind of just to agree with you. Like, you put in a manager there, someone with a bit of a personality who can say, hey, I'm really sorry you don't like the coach right now, but shut the fuck up and go play the game. You know, like this is what we're doing. This is what it's going to look like. You don't get to change that if you don't like it.
I can actually quote, sorry, cutting you off there. I can actually quote Yakinda on HLTV Confirmed, the podcast they had, where he mentioned, he was like, I knew what to do in the server when he was IGLing and everything for Liquid, but he's like, but I was a kid and I either should have had more help, which I didn't ask for. That's on him. He was, you know, very humble enough to admit that. It was like, it just got to me. He just got pressure all the time and everything. And again, Liquid just gave him full reign when they should have been like, hey, do you need a little bit of help over here? Do you need, you know, a little bit of support in this aspect? They didn't do that to Yakinda. So while he did set himself to fail, he didn't find any assistance from, again, the non-existent management, which, you know, I think he made some really, really good points over there, where they gave him the full reign coming in Patsy, and he's like, yeah, it didn't work out. And there was no one to tell me, like, yeah, this isn't going to work out, and maybe this might not pan out, or where to go from there. Instead, he just kind of fizzled out, completely fizzled out. You know, he went into depression. That's what he said. That's what Liquid did to the poor guy. One of the most bubbliest personalities I've ever known, ever, period, in Counter-Strike. And he just completely fizzled out, had to go for a break, and he comes back and, you know, just kicking ass again. So there's something just wrong in this Liquid org.
And I'll just say this: it's not, if it even turns out it was Twistzz like masterminding it all behind the scenes, it's not even that on paper is a terrible move. It's just, I think what you've maybe discovered is there's a reason why in sports it's like a really, really old school thing to allow like a player to be a coach in football, for example. That's a shit from like the 80s and the 90s. And one of the reasons why is even an amazing player who might even be a great captain might not make the right decision when he puts the coach hat on. He might make the decision from the player position. So the issue here is, say, like, you might have actually even done what Twistzz want, but maybe he's the equivalent of the kid going, maybe we should have ice cream for dinner. It's like saying yes doesn't mean it's the right decision. You know what I mean? And so, unfortunately, in that scenario, maybe this is even if it is indeed true, the rumor, why in some ways, by the way, that's the other thing. If you're Twistzz, this is the ultimate surrender. You've gone from like, hey, maybe I could do better than FaZe. In fact, you know what? Maybe I should be the IGL to like, actually, maybe not the IGL, maybe back to FaZe. Maybe, hey, Carrigan, what am I doing this round? Like, can we have some more trophies, please? Like, it feels like he's just realized that, yeah, that wasn't the move, actually. That pivot wasn't for me, you know?
Yeah.
So if you are a Liquid fan, sorry, this sucks. There you go.
Oh, one thing I forgot, though. One thing I forgot is this, though, Sam. All I'm going to say is this one final thing, which is this, Twistzz. If indeed it is true that it's just coincidence you went to that basketball game, you're not in any way... Why are you rejoining FaZe then? This looks like you were even just at a basketball game. Like, you know what? Why don't we just... You know what? It's not really working out with the EliGE. Oh, it's not really working out in Team Liquid either. Well, you know what? If only I could join a different team. Yeah, we were just thinking, what if we get someone else instead of EliGE? Like, that just looks like you just discussed it last week in a game.
I have to I have to end on this because I've just found
Come on.
this tweet is just fantastic.
Oh, come
so
on.
Okay.
when Twistzz said sorry, the whole thing about how much he said we are not a team, no words for how we play.
Yeah.
His old coach, who we are all aware of the very public beef,
Come on, hit me.
said,
no.
Hit me
Oh,
with it.
no.
what I said before came from truth, but also from emotion. I've seen your power. I've also seen your shadows, just like you've seen mine. Seen it.
That bog and
lived
CS2
it, led
again.
it. When the team stops,
Keep
Stop
going,
it.
keep going, keep going. Keep
when
going.
the team stops feeling like a team, it crushes everything. Russ, you've still got more in you, but you've got to decide what kind of leader you really want to be. You can do it, and if you do, they'll follow. They always did.
What about Shuei? Shuei's a leader.
I know.
He's the
Don't worry about
IGL.
it. Don't worry about it.
All right, yeah. I'm not gonna come up
That
with
might be a problem in itself that people forget even that he's the IGL bro.
I know. Like, if you go to ChatGPT, like, who's the Liquid IGL? I think it might just pop up.
Yeah, the joke is it's done a Google search and it's just found Twistzz recently. It hasn't updated like the information and all. Like,
It's insane.
You can let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll be back soon for another episode.